Welcome and thanks for joining us on the Crexi Podcast, an insider's look at all things commercial real estate. Each week, we sit down with CRE experts to uncover trends, insights, and strategies shaping the industry. I'm host Ashley Kopovich, Director of Partnerships at Crexi, and today we are thrilled to sit down with Jeffrey Estrada of Marcus Millichap. A little bit about our guest. Jeffrey sells apartment buildings in Los Angeles, a market many investors considered too regulated, too political, and too difficult to navigate. He works with owners across Central and West LA, helping them understand how their property will actually be viewed by today's buyers. He studies how real deals are being underwritten now and builds sales strategies around that reality in a market defined by regulation, constrained capital, and real underwriting scrutiny. He has led the sale of complex individual assets and mid-market multifamily portfolios throughout Los Angeles, focusing on transactions where clarity and execution directly impact value. Jeff, welcome to the podcast.
Happy to be here.
Really happy to have you. I love all of your story and everything, especially as being a personal friend and Crexi user. So really excited for you to share your insights, how you got into the business, and then obviously all of the ins and outs of the LA market with our guests.
Yeah. So I am broker at M&M.
Mm-hmm.
I really specify in Central and West Los Angeles, but in markets. I started, before getting into brokerage, I started in a very fast-paced production lending environment where, quite simply, it's, if you didn't perform, you were replaced. So that was my introduction to business. I was in the office at 5 a.m. servicing East Coast clients, and I would stay late servicing the West Coast. That was my life for a few years, and it wasn't glamorous, but it was really competitive, and that's the part I really enjoyed about the work. After that, I was recruited to a CRE tech platform, and in my time there, I spent a lot of time with other principals and brokers in LA. And what was so weird, Ashley, is every single time I would be in a meeting or in the rooms, they'd pull me aside and say, hey, you should consider getting into the transaction side of the business. And they kept encouraging me, and they'd give me offers. And it would happen so often that one of my mentors, I turned to him hey, Ken, you have said more or less the same thing to me. Help me understand this, because there's a piece that I'm not really understanding. And for him, it was oh, it's simple. It's really two things. And it's one, you're a hard worker. Well, okay, that whatever. I got that. No problem. I understand. But the second thing he said was super interesting. And he said, you think like an owner. And I'd never heard that before. So after that lunch, I'm just sitting there and processing everything, and it's okay, let's map it all out. And what do I know about the market? I know that Los Angeles is a highly competitive market. There's thousands of brokers. Many of them are great. There's very sophisticated and disciplined buyers. It's one of the most heavily regulated markets in the country. And deals get picked apart constantly, right? So once I had that all mapped out, I then said, okay, it's time to make a decision. So to me, that decision was, do I stay with something that's stable and predictable, or do I go into something that has no safety net, no paycheck, and your performance determines your outcome? So I made the jump to brokerage, and
there we go, and I'm sure that Marcus is so happy that you did that, right? And I'm sure your clients are as well. I think that you have a fascinating story, and you hit on a lot of different nuggets there. So thanks for giving our listeners an overview of your background. I'm going to pull apart some of those things that you just said. So take us back to the beginning, right? Your career right out of college. You're in the office at 5 a.m. You're staying late. give us a little bit of how you sustained that energy. What drives you? What helped you to do that? And, obviously that two piece that, your mentor said, the hard work. Where does that come from? Give us a little insight to that.
Yeah, I think growing up, naturally, I really liked hanging out on the couch and playing video games and watching TV, but those days were few and far between in my house. I wasn't really given the luxury of being lazy, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I have a lot to prove in this world. And that's kind of, I think that's where that DNA comes from. But to answer your question, the work, it was really about the camaraderie and the people I was surrounded by. And it was always a team effort, never a me thing. It's like we, us, how can we improve? And we'd always just, kind of give each other a hard time if someone's showing up late, and it's really holding each other accountable. And I think that's a lot of the qualities that I kind of grew up around.
Yeah, I love that. I think, it's definitely instilled in you as a child, that work ethic, but then also it's interesting transitioning more into that team spirit, right? I think that a lot of people, maybe sometimes individual sellers or things like that, they, can think about themselves, but I think the team dynamic and really holding each other accountable says a lot for, the way that the teams work and just everyone getting to success. So that's a really great lesson. Any lessons that you've learned early on that have really helped you in your career, right? I know that you pivoted into a lot of different industries. So you mentioned that your mentor, boss, or, when you were out to this lunch, the second piece, not only that you were hardworking, was that you were thinking like an owner. Give us a little more insight into what he meant by that, or what you think that you got out of it.
It's hard because once he said that, I just kind of took a step back and I didn't really go into it more. So I was just young, naive, and was like, oh, what does that mean? I barely figured out how to tie my shoes yesterday. But I think as far as something that I do today, and I don't think this is something that I just started doing overnight. I think it's years and years and years of what's kind of led me to this is right now, whenever we work with sellers, one of my first questions is where the deal would blow up before we even have it signed up.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm early on and I'm looking at things, and it's a us thing. If you're a seller, it's me and you. We have to look at this together. Like, where are the problems? You run your building a certain way, and what I do is I point out some issues that would be problematic down the line. That way, if you decide to sell, we can keep the deal together, especially when you're in escrow.
So that's perfect.
Yeah.
I think that that's really good because it's just, kind of what makes you think like an owner. And I think that really translates into you as a broker being able to speak that language and being able to have the foresight and say, hey, this is a pitfall that we can potentially have, and kind of work together. And I think that's probably a really strong asset for you advising owners on if and when to sell, or obviously throughout the transaction process.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this too. I think taking it back, when I was structuring debt, I was working across the country and working with small and mid-sized business owners. And something that really, really, really stood out to me was that a lot of these operators didn't have access to information, access to capital, and more importantly, like access to people that they could rely and trust on. And so that kind of stood with me, because now in this arena, it's not that much different. Now, whether if you have an 8 unit or an 80 unit, and you've owned it for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, 50 years, there's a lot of history in that building. It's your parents purchased it, or your grandparents purchased it. It helped get your kids through college. And it's such an emotional decision. Like, this is a very emotional business. And it's important to know that these operators here in LA have someone that they can rely and trust on.
Absolutely. You just said that perfectly, especially that end bit. Being able to build that trust with your client, especially within multifamily. And as you're mentioning, if an asset has been passed down through generations, it is very emotional. It's not necessarily an institutional building or retail where it, can be just particularly about the numbers.
Yeah.
People are very attached to that. So I love the way that you're making your clients feel really safe, and you're understanding the market from their perspective. That's awesome, and a way to jump into brokerage that I think is really unique to you. Now, we do have a lot of young listeners. We do have some folks that might be thinking about going into brokerage and making that jump like you. Obviously, it's a completely different pay structure, like you said, right? You can have a stable job, or you can jump into brokerage and you bet on yourself, which is awesome, and it's clearly paid off. But talk to us a little bit about that. How long did it take to get your first deal? How did you survive mentally, emotionally, financially throughout that process? And then what kind of advice would you give to those listeners who are debating it?
Yeah. You actually said some of it leading up to your question was, at some point, you either bet on yourself or you don't.
Yes.
And Los Angeles specifically is a very unforgiving market. You either bring real value to the table or you'll be replaced by someone who will. So that's part of it. Just knowing and having the confidence that you can do it. The other thing is, I have the most amazing partner that really supported me and encouraged me to do this. And it's a big shift in how you approach the business, how you approach yourself, and what you think about. Like for me, it was really hard. To make my first check, it was so long that I questioned what I was doing every single day. But not that long where it made me quit.
Sure.
It took me about 16 months. What I would tell someone that's looking to get into the business or thinking about it is, you have to have the desire, and you have to be willing and able to commit, I think, 16 months.
Yeah.
If you want me to give you a little bit of a range, maybe 12 to 18 months. But seriously, like if you don't have the will to commit for 12 months at a minimum, and if you're not able, like financially able, or whatever problems you have, like we're all human, we all have stuff we have to deal with. But if you can't do it, I would almost encourage you not even try.
Yeah.
Because if you're doing it for 6 months, 8 months, that's not even enough time to see results in anything.
Right.
Not even brokerage, just life in general.
For sure.
That's my opinion.
Yeah.
So you have to be willing to put in that time. The other thing I'll say is, this isn't a business that rewards effort. It only rewards outcomes. You get paid on outcomes.
Sure.
And that's a really hard adjustment for a lot of people.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that was really, really good advice, and really sobering advice too, right? I mean, some people just, they get really excited. They see all of the brokers that have been in the business 10, 20, 30 years, and they're making the really big checks. And I have those conversations with people. And one of the questions I ask is, what's the most common misconception of your job? And we'll get to that, don't worry. And they say that, we all make big bucks and it's easy, right? It really does require that grind. And there are so many brokers that I've even known that have become friends that, have quit too early because, it's that 16-month mark or things like that, and it's not really working out. But if you're dedicated, you put in the time and effort, and especially in big cities, it's definitely going to be a little bit harder, but you absolutely can do it, if you commit to yourself.
And I'll say this. I think this is it's one of the easiest business to get into, but one of the hardest to get out of.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. If you're anything like me, you have to see it through.
Sure.
My whole thing was, when I was questioning coming in every day, I was like, I'm not quitting until I close one deal. That's it. One deal, and then I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So what I mean by being the hardest business to get out of is, you feel like you have to see it through.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to feel like a failure. For me, that's how I felt.
Sure.
was like, dude, if I don't close the deal, I'm going to feel like a failure. I'm going to feel it. And so that's what I think, especially when you're in that 12 to 18 month period where you haven't made a check, you get a lot of self-doubt. And it's important to manage that.
For sure. I think that's a really great segue, and you have a lot of advice on this, and it seems like you're a really grounded individual, focused and passionate, probably have a lot of structures and routines. So let's get into that a little bit, right? Tell us how you structure your day, whether that's today versus when you first started. I imagine it's probably a lot different.
Yeah.
So walk us through what a typical day looks like for you now.
Mondays, I'm always in the office. Actually, every day I'm in the office, but my office non-negotiable days are Mondays and Fridays.
Oh, like nice.
Non-negotiables.
Nice, I love that.
Yeah, and I'm only talking like on Monday through Friday work schedule,
Sure.
not inclusive of weekends. But on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, that's when I'm out in the field. That's when I'm with clients, pitching, tours, inspections. That's when I'm getting stuff done.
Yeah.
Monday, I'm setting up for the week. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday with clients.
Yep.
Friday's back doing admin, underwriting, follow-ups, rent rolls, all that stuff. I try to schedule my meetings, like let's say for a Tuesday, for example, like I'm not going to schedule a meeting at 2 p.m. and have that be my only meeting. I'm going to have that meeting be first thing in the morning, 8 a.m., so I can be in the office the rest of the day, or I'm going to stack everyone. Or I'm going to start my meetings at 11 a.m., and be in the office until 10:30 and go like that and go about my day like that, because I still have to do the basics, which is prospecting. And, it's funny, whenever I'm on meetings, I still get this anxiety because I'm like, okay, I know I'm doing the right thing and I know what I'm doing. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be, but I'm down in the office making calls.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a balance, but I'm working through it.
No, I love that. And I think that, anxiety also can be excitement. So in terms of my mind, also get anxious on meetings, right? There are things that I can do to prepare, and we'll discuss how you prepare and things like that. But, anxiety can also be excitement, and it also just means that you care, right? If you're not nervous, if you're not a little anxious or excited about it, it's like, loosey-goosey, but you obviously care.
I'm a high energy person. You can ask anyone around me. In my office, sometimes you can hear me screaming through my door. I'm like just so happy, and I'll clap and I'll just yell someone's name, like what? I was like, just saying hi.
Just say what's up.
Yeah, that's it. That's all I want. So I'm a high energy person.
That's good. Yeah. We want to bring that, and I love that. So you were talking about setting up the structure of your week. Do you also time block your days? I know how important it is. There's a lot of research about time blocking, and someone I know says, if you give me a look at your calendar, I will tell you about your life. So talk to us about how you structure your calendar. Do you use time blocking or any other tools to make you more efficient?
Yeah, everything's in my calendar.
Yeah.
I wake up, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I feel like every successful broker or principal that I listen to on these podcasts wake up at 4:30 and all that. So I also subscribe to that sort of schedule.
Yep.
I don't need to go through it all because everyone else has it. But yeah, I have in my calendar 15 minutes to breathe in the morning, like a meditation.
Love that.
I do breathing with my partner. I have my gym in there.
Yep.
And then I have everything else I need to do, like, any reminders. And so, yeah, I have it all planned out. My meetings, again, are kind of scheduled the way that I said previously. And, yeah, that's really it. Friday follow-ups, I have a block in my calendar from 3 to 4 p.m.
Yep.
That's when I'm doing all my Friday, follow-ups of warmer prospects and just touch points, and go about that.
For sure. And I think that's so important. I know that everyone does talk about it, but morning routines are so paramount, I think, in terms of making sure that your day starts off successfully, or, meditation, making sure that you can tackle everything throughout the day and really regulating the nervous system, making sure that your body is also there and prepared for everything. So, working on that, going to the gym, being overall healthy. So I love that you're incorporating that and, just calendaring it, making time for it, because that's really important to show up for yourself just as much. Then you can show up more for everyone else.
Yeah, and what's important for me when I do it, it's not really that I want to go to the gym to be in shape, or I want to go on a walk to stretch my. That's not really why I do it. I do it so that I can turn my mind on sooner. That's
Okay.
why I do it. Because everything in my mind, like I protect my brain so much and what I allow to come into it. And because it's all you have, you know, this business is so emotional and it's so volatile. So the more I can be in control of myself and the sooner I can turn on in the days, like the better and more successful I'll be.
For sure. I love that you said that. I mean, you know, just going back into the whole psychology of thoughts, you know, your thoughts feed your emotions, feed your behaviors, and, you know, how you portray out in the world. So it really does truly come all from that center. So I love that you're protecting, you know, kind of what goes in and out and, you know, making sure that you can control at the end of the day what you can control. So let's talk about controlling things. So what you can control is before you start doing meetings and, you know, how prepared you are, right? Maybe to quell some of that anxiety. It's still going to be energy and excitement. But what do you do to prep for these either prospecting or the meetings that you have? So are you looking into comps, transaction reports, what's happening in the market? You know, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I do market research all the time when I'm reading articles and headlines, things of that nature. But I don't just read it to read it because I enjoy reading it. I read it because I want to know what's beyond it. And I want to know who wrote the article. Was this paid or not? I want to know who is involved in the transaction. If it's a development, I want to know who the developer was. How'd they get their financing? Who is the lender? Who brokered the deal? Because all of that is what helps me understand what's happening behind the scenes.
Sure.
So that I do every single day. Whatever article is a direct correlation in what I do and who I'll be meeting with. That's what helps me. Anyone can read an article. Anyone can read a headline.
Sure.
But I take it a step further. I love data. I'm a nerd. I look into everything. I want to know, you know, if I'm meeting you and you have a building, I want to know when's the last time this changed hands. Even if this was owned by your grandmother. I want to know when that happened.
Sure.
I know there's a lot that goes into it, but that should give you a good idea of kind of how I structure it.
I love that prep, especially going beyond, you know, kind of just reading the content information, but looking through the lens of how it was written as well, and then just understanding all of those pieces. So that's really helpful. Now, let's say we were on a meeting, and what signals are you looking for in that meeting to let you know, is this meeting going to be worth it? What are you looking for in those early conversations for either a potential deal or, you know, kind of relationship?
My job is to never convince someone to sell a building. If I'm trying to convince someone to sell a building, I'm doing something wrong. I think making the decision to sell a building is something that comes naturally. It's something that comes over time. It's the phone calls that you're getting in the middle of the night because of the plumbing. It's a decision that happens over many years. It's not a decision that happens overnight. You're like, okay, I'm ready to sell. You know, these are like children to them. And I'm generalizing. I'm talking about buildings that have been with families or owners for many, many, many years.
Yep.
I'm not talking about the syndicators and the operators and developers. So just to be clear, but I'm never going to try to convince someone. It's like, if you want to meet, I'm happy to meet. This is what I'm seeing in the market. This is what's happening in the deals that I'm a part of. This is the way that buyers are responding. And really, it's just, if you decide that you want to sell, you have to make sure that you're going to hire someone that's going to have your back.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
So that's my approach. You know, but when we walk through the building, and really for me, whenever I go on a meeting, I don't really go on a meeting unless the seller knows why we're meeting. If someone just wants to meet to shake my hand, great, cool, awesome. But I'm not going to block out 2 hours, you know, driving there, driving back, getting out of the office, going there for an hour. If there isn't a real purpose for the meeting, I like to address any elephant in the room and have a clear expectation of why we're meeting and what we're going to be talking about. And if you're not aligned with that, that's totally fine. That's just my approach. I'm not calling someone just say, hey, let's meet. I'm going to be in the neighborhood. Like,
Yeah.
that's not me.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that. I mean, that's really, really good advice. And sometimes people, especially if they're new getting into the business, maybe they want to get that and they think that they're going to be really successful, but maybe having those more strategic, maybe fewer meetings, really understanding what this person is looking for and how you can help and if it's the right time. I think that drawing all of that out before the meeting is really awesome. So thanks for giving that insight. Now, obviously with the meetings, you're still prospecting. You're trying to find the right kind of people to, contact and meet with. So how has your approach evolved, if it has, from, as an example, as I said, when people maybe just first start to now? And, has it changed at all to your ethos that you just kind of explained?
Yeah, I think meetings now serve a greater purpose, regardless if they're deciding to sell or not, or if they're exploring that idea.
Yep.
I think this year I'll probably do 3 deals with someone that came from a meeting, just a first meeting, and we're doing deals on buildings that are completely unrelated to what we initially met about.
Yes. And that's exactly why you want to be strategic and you want to take those conversations and you build trust with your clients, because that is this business. If people trust you, they want to transact with you over and over, and you want to be the person that they're going to pick up the phone and call when they do have that need arise. So that's awesome to hear. Going back to what you were saying a little bit before, you were saying, you're reading all of the articles, you're prepping before each meeting. Are there any specific tools, systems, technologies that have become indispensable with how you work, whether you're finding that research information, CRM, market data, platform? Give it to us.
Yeah.
I promise this is not a paid question.
Crexi a lot. I'm kidding. A lot of my systems that I use, early on, I spent a lot of time building out a database. Mm-hmm. I realize that's changed and evolved with where we are today, but I spent a lot of time building out a database. I used LexisNexis. I loved LandVision because at the time I was so poor. I couldn't afford anything, and that was the cheapest thing I could get.
Right.
And so anyways, I used all that. Now my database is 10 out of 10. Like, I have everything in there. Mm-hmm. I have your birthday. I have your mailing address.
I expect a gift.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll have to get you added in there.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. That's no problem. But I have all that information.
Yeah.
What type of dog you have, put it in there.
Sure.
Like my notes, if you read my notes, you're like, dude, what are you talking about? Why are you saying yellow, blue, white? Like, why are you, but to me, that all means something.
For sure.
So yeah, that's a lot of what I use in my follow-up system. Like, that's
I think that's really important. And I think that goes the extra step, right? And being able to take those notes. And, when you do call an owner, it's nice to say, hey, how was your daughter's second birthday party? And they're going to, whether that's an owner, whether that's your best friend, right? I think that is the human element too, that's sometimes lost with people who just think it's, hey, this is a transactional business or, what have you. Bringing in that element is really important, and I love to hear it.
And what's crazy? I've walked, and I know many brokers operate this way too, but a lot of them don't even have a database, which is crazy to me.
Wow.
It's crazy. It's like, dude, what? It's like it's sales 101. 101. It's, for example, like I have such a good process that if you gave me a listing today, in 5 seconds, I can have 20 tours because I have
I'll give you my property.
I have all of this logged without even me making a phone call.
Sure.
I push one button and I know who it goes to.
Amazing.
And depending what type of building it is.
Right.
If it's a 40-unit, 5-story brick building, I know who to reach.
Yes.
If it's a brand new 2025 finished building that still is not stabilized, I know who to call.
Yeah.
If it's someone that wants to buy a loan, I know who to get in touch with. But that's not something that happened years ago. Like first day in the business, that's not something that I need. Like just barely figuring everything out. I'm barely putting a database together.
Right.
But the reason I'm able to do this is because I have such a good database that it allows me to do this.
Yeah.
And it's like any listing that we had previously. Like we had a 28-unit building in Hollywood, brand new construction, had a lot of challenges. I'm sure whoever's listening knows the deal. 28 units on Gower and just south of Franklin, and it's new construction, and there's a lot of issues with it that we don't really have to get into. But from that, like, I know I have every single buyer segmented.
Mm-hmm.
Like buyers that thought it was stabilized, buyers that thought it was a distressed building, buyers that wanted to buy the note, buyers that wanted. I have all of this.
Mm-hmm.
So you, a prospective buyer for something I'm selling, you're not going to get an email for something that you're not interested in.
Sure. And I think that's really important. So if you do have that database, really being nuanced with it, taking the notes on each person, but then also being able to categorize, right? Because if you did sell, a deal and you have something new to market that, people were interested, maybe they didn't pull the trigger on that one, but now you have a whole list of people that can, potentially have that. So I think it's really, really important and, definitely something that a lot of people miss. So if you're listening, really make sure to take that advice because it is super, super important.
And it's so simple.
Yeah.
But the problem is a lot of people don't want to do it because it's grunt work.
It's work.
And it's not fun.
Yeah.
You have to be there at your computer. I'm a freak, so I take it as I honestly take it up a notch more than what other people would, but
sure.
It's the basics.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we all want to go out and have fun and sell and do all of that stuff. Trust me, some people are really, it is the admin work, but it definitely will help you. So thanks for sharing that insight with our listeners. I definitely want to move into just your broad industry focus, kind of get into multifamily in Los Angeles. So let's dive into what's happening in the LA multifamily market right now. What are you watching most closely?
I think right now there's a lot of talks on Measure ULA, the mansion tax.
Yep.
There's a lot of people that are watching and waiting to see what'll happen. So that's one thing. But just to kind of be a little bit more broader, Los Angeles is a very regulated market.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I am really in touch with the regulation and what changes are coming, and that's kind of what's most important to me.
Okay, I totally get it. Both of those things I've been hearing a ton on. So regulatory changes, obviously, what are specific regulations or policy shifts that are having the biggest impact on your clients and the deals that you're working on?
I think ULA.
Yeah.
Okay. You've probably heard that a few times.
Yeah.
Measure ULA, the transfer tax.
For sure. The mansion tax, massive topic. So for those who maybe are listening who aren't familiar with that, can you explain a little bit about what it is and what the real impact it has on the ground right now?
Yeah. So it's any building that's over $5 million or 5.3 and $10 million, there's a tax like 4.5%, 5% that gets that's happened when this building is sold. Mm-hmm. The specifics, it's somewhere there. It's like 5 million, 4%, 10 million, 5%. I can give you the specifics, but it's a gnarly tax.
Okay.
And it has really chilled the market for buying and selling of larger buildings.
Yeah.
And it has chilled the development landscape for new housing. Mm-hmm. And what we keep talking about as a city is we need more housing,
right.
or, and variations of that, depending on what side of the equation you're on.
Right.
And so ULA is a tax for that. I can get into more specifics, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good overview for our clients because obviously, the direct impact on that is, do people want to develop in LA? What are mom and pop sellers going to do? Are institutional players going to come into the market? Has it overall, kind of chilled, as you said? What's the friction really, that you've kind of seen?
So we've seen it on a handful of deals. And I think right now the ones that are feeling it the most are developers that have projects that have recently completed or will be completing pretty soon. Because, and I have so much respect for developers. Like you thought like 18 months for a paycheck, try 5 years. I'm serious. I've
Yeah.
seen some of these developers 7
Yeah.
years in a project. They make their
Right.
money at the end.
At the end, right.
They refi, sell.
Yeah.
They have an event at the end of the project.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a developer, and by the way, the mansion tax was marketed to tax the rich and tax the mansions that you see in the hills. But the people that it's really hurting are small business owners.
Mm.
Developers, again, generally speaking, are small businesses.
Mm-hmm.
They make their money at the end, which I've already explained. They hire a lot of blue-collar workers, laborers, electricians, plumbers, framers, excavators. They give the city more property taxes. So if you're essentially penalizing a developer for building more housing, and if I'm in the business of making a reasonable return, I'm not going to do it here.
Right.
I'm going to go somewhere else where there isn't as much entitlement risk.
Sure.
And I can be in and out of a project in 3 years,
Yeah.
5 years. I see some guys 7 years,
Yeah.
and there's a different building that we were selling, and the value is worth $17 million, but they were getting a tax bill worth a valuation of $25 million.
Mm-hmm.
And the developer couldn't hit his lease up
Mm-hmm.
at the numbers he projected, so there's another blow. And now he has to get an attorney, again, pay more to try to tell the city, hey, my building isn't worth $25 million. I really wish it,
Right.
I wish,
I wish it was.
Yeah, but it's not.
But it's not. Yeah.
So anyway, there's just a lot to it,
For sure.
And when you're making your money at the end and you have an equity partner,
Yep.
pretty much at the finish line,
Yep.
it's like, dude, what are we doing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, thanks for that overview. And, it seems like it comes with a lot of challenges. So, you mentioned you're telling the city and, I'm sure there's a lot of pushback on this and, seeing what we're going to do about it.
Look, I don't want to make it seem doom and gloom.
Yeah.
Because it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Right.
But it is important and it's a sensitive subject. It's a heavy, heavy, heavy topic.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on what side of the equation you are as an owner, long-term owner, legacy owner, developer, syndicator, a lot of people are feeling the pressure. But,
Sure.
We'll get through it. We'll prevail.
Yeah. As we do, LA. As we do. So beyond the ULA, insurance has also become a critical issue for multifamily owners in Los Angeles. Give our listeners a little bit of an overview of what's happening with insurance and why it's such a pressing concern right now.
It's not even a matter of cost of insurance. I've seen insurance spike by, if a building was paying $5,000, now it's $15,000 in some instances. But it's not really even a question of cost anymore. It's about insurability.
Mm-hmm.
Can I get insurance if I buy this building?
Right.
So that's the biggest question. And a lot of it's, updated panels. The fire zones have been extended. You have to trim trees if they're too close to the roof. There's a lot to it. If the AC mandate passes, every building built before 1978, assuming that they're still on their original panels, that's going to be a massive blow because
Right.
if you have even a 10-unit building or 20-unit building, whatever, and if you have to update the ACs,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have to update the electrical systems because you're not going to have the ampage to support these installations.
Sure.
So, the way I kind of see it too, it's inevitable. It has to happen, because insurance companies alone are pulling back.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll consider insuring you if you have upgraded systems. And the AC thing, there's a lot of, questions about it and reactions.
Mm-hmm.
But if you forget about the air conditioning for a second, if you just want to have insurance, you're going to have to upgrade the panels.
Sure.
So anyway, that's just kind of what's happening there.
Yeah.
It's a matter of, in lawsuits, if your insurance, if it's going through your insurance, and imagine that and outdated systems together, it's going to be a challenge.
And what happens when owners can't afford those upgrades?
That's tough. That's the toughest thing.
Yeah.
Having a building, a phenomenal building, without the liquidity to defend it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the hardest thing for an owner.
Yeah. Are you making any introductions to, anyone? Are they looking to get capital to do these improvements and things? Or are you seeing anything? I know it's not necessarily the business that you're in, but anything tangential?
Yeah. I mean, always help when I can, make other
Yeah.
introductions, have a list of insurance brokers that we work with. And, we sold a building where it had outdated systems and it had Federal Pacific panels with habitability issues, and a lot of people backed away. They're like, I don't know how I'm going to insure the building.
Right.
It's a real concern.
Yeah.
But we figured it out. We got it done.
You got the deal done.
Yeah.
Good deal. Good deal.
So that's the thing.
You kind of figure it out and get creative, and that is part of your job, which kind of is again what makes brokerage interesting, right? No deal is ever the same.
Yeah, totally. And this is something that I've learned too. It's never the problem in itself that blows up a deal. Like if there's a problem, it's not the problem itself that's going to kill the deal. It's how you respond to it.
Exactly.
How you're prepared. And it goes back to what I said originally when we're meeting with clients. We're like, hey, this is going to be an obstacle.
Right.
This isn't to make you scared. This is so we can be on the same page.
And start to work around it.
Have a game plan.
Onset,
so that
right?
when it comes up, we're not scrambling.
There you go.
We're like, oh, here, we already have quotes. Here you go. Oh,
Exactly.
Financing. Here you go. We already have this person that can do this bridge loan for this building. They've already walked it, size it. We're really prepared.
Amazing. Oh, I love to hear that because that's exactly how you win, right? And, just making sure that you're prepared, pulling out the stops before things happen. Just make sure that you're on the same page, right? So that's great.
I try to figure out what the objection's going to be before it's an objection.
There we go. Selling 101 as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. So, in terms of like macro factors, as we were talking about, insurance being one of them, interest rates, regulations, you can't control some of those things. How do you stay informed and balance that without letting those forces paralyze your decision making or your clients, right? You said we can get through it. So, anything that you're helping them see in terms of optimism as well.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm most optimistic about is that demand hasn't vanished.
Yeah.
On buildings that we're selling, we're still getting 5-6 offers. But it's a partnership, right? But a lot of the information, again, it goes back to headlines. It's very easy to freeze when you see a headline.
Sure.
Very easy to freeze. But it's what's beyond it. And what's the reason? And how do you pivot? How do you stay, that's kind of what's important for me. Because if my client's freaking out, it's like, it's okay. You have every right to freak out. But this is what we're going to do.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it kind of goes back to what you were saying before when you're reading the article, which lens are you reading it through? Yeah. Right. And kind of walking them through it there.
It's very easy. Clickbait is everywhere.
Yeah.
It's
it's
so
real.
true. It's so true.
It is.
And sometimes I'm guilty of it myself. But it kind of goes back to how I prepare. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, obviously there's still active buying and deals that are being traded in LA. I love that. And demand hasn't slowed down. So it's really important to highlight. So for investors who are still active and buying in LA, what deal structures or strategies are actually working in this environment? How are you advising them?
For buyers, you mean? Like whenever they're... I think what's important right now is buyers want buildings where there's clarity. That's all they want. They just want to know what they're buying. They want to know what the problems are, and they want to go in there. And right now, there's real operators in Los Angeles. There's real and sophisticated operators, and they just want to know what they're walking into.
Right.
If they can't get some of their basic questions answered, they'll lose interest.
Yeah. Clarity. I love it. I mean, don't we all want clarity in everything in life, right? What are we getting into?
Yeah, you got to work.
I could use that in my dating life. No, I'm just kidding. We're not here to talk about that.
That's so funny.
But no, I love that. And,
Yeah.
again, it goes back to everything that you've been talking about. So appreciate that. And then last question about the market. You work across rent controlled and non-RSO inventory, value add, stabilized, as well as development stage assets. Are there specific asset types or neighborhoods in LA where you're seeing more momentum or buyer interest right now?
I mean, we cover Central and West Los Angeles, and regardless of where we are, whether if it's Westlake, Pico Union, Koreatown, we have good traction there. I have a building we're going to be closing on in 2 weeks. It's in Koreatown. We had 5 offers on the building.
Nice.
And so demand is still there. People still like it. It depends. Again, it's all about the story.
Yeah.
And then we have a building in Westwood we just closed on, and a building in Miracle Mile where we have 5 offers on right now. So there's still a lot of demand. There's a lot of hype and buzz right now around the Olympics and everything that's coming through LA.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it kind of goes back to the story. There's so many buildings that are being put on the market. So a buyer right now has a lot of fatigue in the market because they're looking at every deal and underwriting so many deals, and they're being told different things, and they just want to be able to make money. That's all they want in a easy, don't make their life harder than it already is.
Sure.
So we have a very clear story from the beginning, and we hit the ground running. And the way our team is structured is when we get a listing, we go crazy in the market.
Mm-hmm.
The calls, the emails, the tours, we get a lot of traction fast.
Yeah.
And we'll know pretty early on, what's going to happen.
Right.
But again, it never goes back to, going back to one of my earlier points, making the decision to sell a building is the hardest decision a seller can make.
Right.
The deal part we can do,
Mm-hmm.
but it's making the decision. And once they've made that decision and they trust us to put their interests ahead of ours, sky's the limit.
I love it. Well, you heard it here first. LA, we're still doing deals. Everything is still booming. Ton of offers. I mean, Jeff, amazing insight and expertise.
It's not easy though. It's not easy, and that's not everyone. That's what we're experiencing.
Right. Absolutely. And I love it. And clearly, you guys have a team that is highly trained and regarded. So if anyone out there looking for, connections, definitely will give all of your information out. But before I let you go, given your background and expertise, I'm sure our listeners are curious about your answers to a few rapid fire / words of advice questions.
Sure.
Are you ready?
I'll do my best.
Okay. All right. Here we go. First one, if you were given $50 million today and had to invest it in LA multifamily immediately, what would your go-to strategy be? Value add, stabilize, a specific neighborhood, what have you, and why?
That's it? Only 50?
I ain't Rockefeller, Jeff.
You can't buy anything with 50 here. No, I'm kidding. Look, I'll tell you this. What I would buy is something very boring in a good location where there's controllable upside and something I can hold through many cycles.
There we go.
That's what I would do.
Perfect. What words of advice have you been given about being successful? Or, excuse me. Sorry, let me take that again. What's the worst? What's the worst advice you've been given about being successful in commercial real estate brokerage?
Yeah, it's a good one. I will give you terrible advice that I gave myself.
Ooh, what's that?
So I'll twist it up a little bit.
Okay.
So early on, I convinced myself that everyone was my enemy.
Oh.
And everyone was out to get me. And people were only asking how I was doing just to get closer to me and ask me questions and try to get intel. And I was so closed-minded, and I was like, no, this is all mine. This is my information. You're going to use it against me. And so I was very protective and selective. And it was really hard for me to let people in. I just, quite frankly, just saw so many people as my enemy. For better or for worse, I don't know. And I made a switch. I don't know when that switch happened, but I started opening myself up more and sharing information and introducing people and connecting them and just being a resource of information. And after that, there has been so many opportunities that have just opened for me and so many doors.
I love that answer so much because being in sales and being in commercial real estate, you know, there's a lot of egos and there are a lot of people that keep things close to the chest. And, you know, it is really hard. And some people do feel like that and they feel attacked and things. But, you know, at the end of the day, once you start helping others and what you put out into the universe, you get back. I fully appreciate that and can understand it. So, you know, rising tides raise all ships.
Totally.
Old quote, but it's true as day.
I'll add to it too. Like now with that, like so many appraisers call me from Koreatown to the ocean. Many different appraisers call me for comp information. And it's like, I have close relationships with a lot of the people that are doing these deals now. The sellers, because I either pitched on the assignment and didn't get it. The brokers, the buyer. If someone's doing a refi, like I get all these calls now.
I love it. I love it.
And it's like what goes around comes around.
Yes.
You know? I can give you so many more examples, but that's, I think that answers your question.
That's amazing. I really, really love that. Definitely really good reminder there. So thanks, Jeff. And then despite all of the regulatory complexity, insurance challenges, uncertainties, what makes you optimistic about the LA multifamily market and the future?
Demand's still there.
Yeah.
You know, I think when the, cheap financing or leverage went away, a lot of ways to financially engineer or get cute on doing a deal kind of disappeared with it. What you have left are real operators and real syndicators and people that can perform. And there's still demand. You know, there's people that are obviously getting banged up and looking in other places. You know, it's all not, it's not doom and gloom in LA.
Yeah.
Everyone complains. I complain. There's challenges. There's issues. But for what we're selling, there's still demand.
I love it. I love to hear it. Now, as we wrap up, last and final question, any parting words of advice, wisdom, encouragement, anything that you'd like to share with our audience?
Just keep going. Not really much to it. Just keep going. Do what you do.
Yes, there you go. You heard it here. Thank you, Jeff, so much for sitting down with us. I truly enjoyed this conversation, as I'm sure our listeners did as well. We know you're really busy, so genuinely appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Of course. Now, if anyone wants to connect with you after this, where can they find you? Email, social media? Give it to us.
Yeah, easiest things on LinkedIn. Just Google me and I should come up, hopefully. If not, that's a problem. But yeah. Connect with me on LinkedIn. You can go on Marcus Millichap website and you'll find my information there.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Jeff. Really appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you.
And thanks to everyone that tuned in today. If you enjoyed this episode, let us know. Leave a comment, rating, or review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. For a full library of episodes and show notes, visit Crexi.com/podcast, and you can check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Crexi for video recordings of each episode. Take care and be sure to tune in next time.